My daughter left her 6-year-old autistic son on my porch with one backpack and a promise to pick him up on Sunday. Sunday never came. That was 11 years ago. I raised him Noah by learning his rhythms, not forcing mine. People said he would always struggle. They were certain. They were wrong. At 17, he built a verification tool that a security firm purchased for $3.6 million. The local news made it a headline. 2 weeks later, my doorbell rang. My daughter stood there with a man in a tailored suit and a folder too heavy with stamps and signatures that looked official enough to drown the truth. They said she had maintained involvement. They said her paperwork proved it. Our lawyer warned that, without ironclad proof those files were forged, the court might hand her control of Noah's future, and the money meant for his independence. I felt the floor tilt. Noah didn't. He leaned toward me and with that level voice of his whispered, "Let her talk." I wanted to drag him out of that room, out of that trap. Instead, I watched him sit perfectly still, like a lighthouse squinting through fog, and I realized I didn't yet understand what he had been building all those quiet nights. The nights when my old house hummed and clicked and his keyboard answered with patient light. My name is Marion Hale. I am 70 years old, and this is the story of how the boy everyone underestimated taught a courtroom what truth looks like when you can prove it. Before I tell you how the forged dates fell apart, or why a chipped blue enamel mug became the thread holding two lives together, I need to take you back to the beginning, to the first weekend that never ended, to the burnt cookies, to the grocery receipts I never threw away, and to the way Noah counts traffic lights the way some people count prayers. If stories about late life courage and second chances speak to you, tell me where you're watching from, and tap subscribe to MY channel. We're building a place where experience is an asset and every year still ahead can hold the bravest chapter. Now again, let's start the story. The November wind had that brittle sound it gets right before winter moves in for good. When Lily showed up at my front door that Friday evening, she looked restless, hands trembling, eyes darting down the street like she was late for something she didn't want to name. Noah was beside her, a small, quiet boy in a gray hoodie 2 sizes too big. He was rocking on his heels, fingers pressed to his ears. "Just for the weekend, Mom," Lily said. "I need a break. Please." She didn't hug him. She didn't kiss him. She placed that single backpack on my porch like she was setting down a borrowed item she didn't plan to retrieve, then turned and hurried back to her car. Her taillights disappeared through the drizzle before I found any words to say. Noah didn't move. He stood staring at the floorboards, rocking, whispering something only he could hear. "Hey, sweetheart," I said gently. "It's cold. Come inside." He didn't answer. I picked up the backpack. It was featherlight. Just clothes and one plastic dinosaur. No toothbrush. No jacket. No note. I opened the door wider and waited. After a moment, he stepped inside. The heater clicked on and he flinched. The refrigerator hummed, and he covered his ears tighter. That's how our first night began. With a boy hiding from the sounds of a house that had forgotten how to be quiet. I made him chicken nuggets because Lily once mentioned he liked them. He turned away. Tried macaroni, then applesauce, nothing. Finally, I gave him crackers. He ate 4. At bedtime, I tried to tuck the blanket around him, but he screamed. A sound so sharp it felt like glass in my chest. I stopped, stepped back, whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart. You can sleep however you need." He didn't sleep. I heard the soft rhythm of his humming all night long, a steady tone under the creaks of my old house. I lay awake listening, realizing I knew how to teach classrooms of children, but not how to soothe my own grandson. Saturday came. No call from Lily. I left a message. "Honey, please tell me what he eats, what helps him sleep." Sunday came. Still nothing. By Monday morning, I called the pediatrician. The doctor was kind, his eyes patient but tired. "Mrs. Hale," he said, "you're doing everything right. We'll schedule an evaluation." It sounds like Noah's showing classic autistic traits. Autistic. The word was both an answer and a riddle. I drove home gripping the steering wheel tighter than I meant to. At home, Noah was on the kitchen floor, lining up my old spoons in a perfect gradient. Smallest to largest, handles aligned, each spacing exact. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. It was beautiful. I watched him for a long time before saying, "You like patterns, don't you?" He didn't look up, but his rocking slowed. That was answer enough. Days turned into weeks. Lily didn't return. I learned Noah needed scrambled eggs every morning, toast cut corner to corner, never straight across. I learned not to change the TV channel during commercials, and never to touch him unless he reached out first. Routine became a language we both spoke. I kept my voice soft, my footsteps steady. When he flinched at the sound of my tea kettle, I switched to the microwave for hot water. Small changes, but they made our world survivable. Then came Christmas Eve. I baked sugar cookies, one of the few traditions I still kept from when Lily was young. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and butter. The phone rang. My heart leapt. "Mom," her voice said. "Lily. Thank God. When are you coming to get him? He needs you." A pause. Then, "I can't do this anymore, Mom. He's yours." "Wait, what do you mean he's mine?" "Lily, he's..." The line went dead. I called back until my fingers hurt, but she never answered. The cookies burned in the oven. I sat on the floor with the smoking tray cooling beside me, and the house smelled of sugar turned to ash. Noah walked in holding the same blue mug I'd used that morning. He set it beside me without a word, then went back to his corner. That simple gesture, that one act of care, felt like a bridge between two lonely hearts. That was the night I stopped waiting for Lily to call. That was the night I became Noah's forever. It's strange how a life can shrink and expand at the same time. Mine did. Days became a loop of breakfast, therapy, and careful quiet. Every morning, scrambled eggs, toast cut corner to corner, and the same blue mug waiting at Noah's right hand. I began to understand that predictability was our shared currency. It bought us peace. Therapy started a month after Lily vanished. The occupational therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Klein, taught me to see the world the way Noah felt it. "Noise isn't just sound," she said. "It's texture. Too much texture hurts." So I learned the art of silence, soft shoes, slow doors, muted alarms. Noah, meanwhile, learned to speak in fragments. "Toast," he would say. Or "lights." Sometimes just "stop." Each word was a small island he dared to step on. I celebrated every one. He kept notebooks, cheap spiral ones from the dollar bin, where he drew circles, lines, and clusters of marks that looked random until you noticed the pattern. He wasn't scribbling, he was mapping. When I asked, "What are you drawing?" he murmured, "How the day feels." At 7, he began to write real words. Egg, toast, blue, quiet. At 8 sentences, today was loud. Grandma didn't change the route. He was cataloging the world, storing order against the threat of chaos. I kept everything, receipts, calendars, doctor's notes, because teachers and social workers always wanted proof. But I also kept them because Noah watched me file them. He liked order that lived in binders. One day he said, "If we put colored tabs, we can find things faster." That was the first time he'd used we. School was another story. 4th grade, the principal called. "Mrs. Hale, Noah struggles in group settings." I asked, "Does he complete his work?" "Yes, but..." "Then he's learning." The next week they scheduled an IEP meeting. I walked into that conference room with binders thick enough to stand upright on their own. They spoke of least restrictive environments and behavioral interventions. I spoke of evidence. Reading comprehension above grade level. Math 2 years ahead. Speech progress steady. When they hesitated, I said, "Accommodate him. Don't exile him." I left with everything I asked for: noise-canceling headphones, flexible deadlines, a quiet corner in class. And one victory Noah didn't even know he'd won. That night, I found him sorting his magnetic letters by shade. The gradient perfect from crimson to gold. I told him, "You changed things today." He looked up briefly and said, "I like when things stay true." That word "true" stayed with me. By 9, he began to notice things other people missed. "The light on 5th and Maple stays red longer," he said once in the car. I timed it. He was right. Another day, he caught a receipt error at the grocery store, 3 cents off. Always patterns, always precision. He also started asking questions that cut deep. One morning while I flipped his eggs, he said, "Why did Mom leave?" The spatula trembled in my hand. "She said she couldn't handle it," I answered. He nodded, wrote it down, then looked at the page for a long time. I excused myself and cried in the laundry room where he couldn't hear me. But I also realized something. He was ready to face truth, no matter how blunt. At 10, Dr. Klein suggested a tablet for communication. I scraped savings together and bought one for his birthday. He learned it faster than I learned how to turn it on. Within days, he was scanning his notebooks page after page of coded memories. Why scan them? I asked. So I can keep them forever. From then on, the glow of that tablet became the pulse of our evenings. I'd read my mystery novels on the couch. He'd work silently beside me, the hum of the heater and his soft tapping perfectly synced. Other parents in therapy circles asked how I stayed patient. I stopped trying to fix him, I said. I just tried to understand him. One mother whispered, "That sounds exhausting." "It's not," I said. "It's honest." And honesty, I learned, was Noah's native language. By 11, his speech was fluent, precise, sometimes too blunt for the world. When his teacher miscalculated a fraction on the board, he corrected her. Politely but publicly. The school called it defiance. Called it accuracy. They wanted a psychological reevaluation. I brought 6 months of therapy reports proving he wasn't oppositional, just literal. The psychologist sighed. He sees structure where others see hierarchy. Then maybe we should learn from him, I said. That year, he started asking for documents: birth certificate, school records, bills. He said, "I want to know everything about me." I helped him scan it all. He labeled folders by year, then by type. "What are you building?" I asked. "A system that remembers." I didn't know what that meant yet, but I trusted the focus in his eyes. He was turning order into armor, and I, unwittingly, was handing him every piece of it. The winter Noah turned 11 into 12, my old laptop began living on the kitchen table like a second appliance. He asked if he could use it, and I said yes, imagining he would play puzzle games or watch silent train videos on loop the way he used to do to calm himself. Instead, I found him staring at a screen full of words and brackets that looked like spilled Scrabble tiles. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" I asked. "Learning a language," he murmured without looking up. "Spanish. Python." I laughed softly at the name and then didn't laugh at all when I realized he was serious. He followed free tutorials with a patience I had seen only when he sorted buttons by size and shade. Within a week, he showed me a little program that sorted files by their dates. Within another, one that found duplicates in a folder. He explained loops and variables in a tone as calm as a metronome. I did not understand the mechanics, but I understood the focus. It was the same focus he used to align spoons and traffic lights, and his heartbeat to the hum of my refrigerator. By late autumn, the laptop was sputtering from the effort. It took longer and longer to boot up, making a grinding sound like it had gravel in its thoughts. I took the money I had been saving for new curtains and used it to buy him a second-hand desktop from a neighbor whose son had left for college. It was not fancy, but it was stable, and stability is a love language. He set it on the desk in his room and promised to come out for meals and sleep at almost reasonable hours. He kept one of those promises. Most nights I woke in the dark to the soft, steady tapping of his keyboard and the pale glow slipping under his door. When I whispered, "Noah, bedtime," he would answer, "In a moment." His moment stretched like taffy. I started leaving him small plates, apple slices, crackers, once a ham sandwich cut into triangles because he liked the symmetry, and always the blue mug filled with water. In the morning it would be half empty, a small proof that he remembered to take care of his body while his mind sprinted far ahead. One evening he called, "Grandma, can I show you something?" I sat on the edge of his bed while he pulled up a plain screen, no flashy colors, just simple boxes and patient lines of text. "This," he said, "takes a document and makes a signature like a fingerprint. If someone changes even a word, the signature changes. And I can tell when." He showed me. He opened a text file, ran the program, and a long string of characters appeared. He changed a single adjective, ran it again, and the string came back different. "So you can see the moment a lie slips in," I said. He nodded. Documents have patterns like faces do. They show when something is off. From that night on, the muscles in my shoulders unwound by degrees I hadn't known they were holding. For years, schools and offices had been places where words got rearranged after the fact, where someone's memory could outrank my binder. Noah was building a memory that did not smudge. The project grew. He asked for my old binders. "All of them?" I asked, half proud, half terrified. "All of them," he said, eyes focused the way they get when a puzzle is about to make sense. We set up an assembly line in the dining room. I pulled papers he scanned. He organized them by year, then by type: medical, school, therapy, legal, and layered each file with information I could not see but he could summon with a keystroke, timestamps, verification codes, those digital fingerprints he called hashes. They all link, he explained. If anyone tries to change one piece, the chain breaks. Like pulling a single stitch out of a knitted scarf. He did not just build order, he built consequence. As the years leaned forward, Noah's compassion grew beside his competence. He tested my patience less because he needed less correction and more because he demanded precision from himself first. When a teacher smiled at me with her mouth while her eyes stayed tired and flat, Noah said, "She is pretending the meeting is fine." He was not cruel. He was accurate. An accuracy I learned is a form of respect. When he was almost 13, he asked to see anything from the year he arrived: receipts, calendars, utility bills, phone records. I brought in the boxes I had stored in the garage like a small paper attic. He ran a tender finger down a calendar page I had filled with little squares of survival. Therapy at 4, call doctor, buy eggs. Why? I asked, and he answered without looking up. Because I need the timeline to be complete. Then it will be true. He scanned grocery slips and phone statements. He stitched them into that invisible chain. I thought he was building a map back to himself. I did not realize he was also quietly laying a tripwire for anyone who might rewrite our past. During the spring he turned 14, he began talking less about school and more about systems. He asked theoretical questions at dinner that made me sit straighter. If people can easily believe a confident story, how does a quieter reality compete? What do you trust when 2 signatures match but the dates feel wrong? Is there a way to prove something happened even if no one took a picture? Sometimes I had answers. More often, I had the blue mug and a listening face. That seemed to be enough. He started taking video calls in his room, first with small security outfits, then with companies whose names I had seen on bank pamphlets. I stood in the hallway, close enough to catch the shape of his explanations without violating his privacy. He never oversold. He did not promise magic. He explained how the system compared layers of information, how it recognized patterns across files, how it could spot a forged document like an art conservator spots a wrong pigment under the right light. The first license offer came late that summer, just a modest contract with a boutique firm. He told me the amount and I misheard because my brain had learned to translate numbers into grocery budgets and therapy copays, not into sums that could fix roofs and futures. "It is less than it should be," he said with a fleeting, satisfied glance. "But it proves the system works for people who aren't me." More calls followed. Each one seemed to carve another channel in his confidence. He was never theatrical. He disliked the word genius. He just kept asking better questions. When he turned 16 into 17, the conversations got serious enough to make me call a lawyer. We found a man named Gabriel Cho, who specialized in intellectual property and seemed to understand Noah's blend of calm and aggression. Gabriel sat at our kitchen table and spread out 3 offers. This one is an exclusive license, money over time but with obligations. This one buys your software outright. This one is a hybrid, money now and later, but limits your ability to work in adjacent fields. Noah ran his finger across the clauses, stopping at one that mentioned a non-compete. "If I sell it," he asked, "how long am I barred from building anything similar?" "Standard is several years," Gabriel said. "Sometimes longer if the buyer is nervous." Noah nodded. "Long is fine. I am done with this sort of software once I prove it works." I turned my head. "Done? But this is what I built to do one job," he said. "After that, I want to work with people, not papers." I should have known the boy who insisted on quiet corners would want to build them for others. He chose the outright sale. The number made my breath stall, larger than the modest offers we had first imagined, larger than the total I had earned in decades of teaching. When the deposit landed, I made tea and spilled half of it on the counter because my hands decided to tremble like leaves in a sudden wind. The local news called and I wanted to hide, but Noah said yes with the same small shrug he uses when he decides to try a new cereal. The reporter, a young man in a navy jacket, asked what the software did. "It verifies what actually happened," Noah said. "It reads truth the way a seismograph reads a tremor." When asked why he had made it, he answered, "Because stories bend. Records shouldn't." They aired 2 minutes of the interview that evening. My phone pinged with messages from neighbors and former colleagues. I sat on the couch while Noah washed his blue mug at the sink as if the water had any idea what tomorrow would bring. For a few days he was quiet in a new way. He stood at the kitchen window watching the street like he was waiting for weather. When I asked, "Are you all right?" he said, "We should check the mail together for a while." And I understood that not all attention is friendly. I also understood that the world has a way of waking up after a headline. Sometimes it wakes kindly. Sometimes it wakes with a knock. 2 weeks later, the doorbell rang, and when I opened it, the past stood there in a coat that fit too well. Lily's hair was neat, her face careful. Beside her was a man whose suit had the confident drape of someone who sends his shirts to specialists. He held a leather folder thick with what I recognized as not just paper, but intention. "Mother," Lily said, and the word felt like a prop she could put down at the end of a scene. "We would like to discuss Noah's situation," the man said smoothly. He introduced himself as Mr. Wilder, a family attorney. The way he said family made my stomach choose between anger and fear and land on both. They came to the kitchen table because that is where everything important in our lives had happened: the therapies, the IEP victories, the unspooling of my savings, the patient breakfast, the birth of a verification system, the clink of a blue mug against old wood. Mr. Wilder laid out documents with embossed seals and tidy signatures. He spoke of parental rights never relinquished. He referenced regular financial support and consistent contact. He slid a page toward me that claimed Lily had been coordinating with me all along. The numbers were exact. The dates were careful. The tone was confident. My throat went dry. "That is not true," I said. "She left him with me and never came back." He smiled amicably, a gesture that made no dent in his eyes. "We have records." I called Gabriel. He reviewed the copies they left behind and told me what my body already knew. The documents looked real enough to pass a casual inspection and dangerous enough to survive a closer one. "Without proof of forgery," he said gently, "we risk a judge granting her financial guardianship until Noah turns 18. He would likely not be removed from your home, but the money could fall under her control." I sat very still at the kitchen table after I hung up. The house hummed, the heater clicked. A jay yelled in the maple outside with the outrage only birds perfect. Noah leaned in the doorway watching me, his face as calm as a clock. "We need another lawyer," I said. He nodded once. We hired Amira Solis, a family attorney whose office smelled faintly of old books and lemon oil. She was precise and merciful. She examined Wilder's packet page by page, made small noises that meant she was impressed with the workmanship if not the ethics. She told us plainly that the absence of a formal guardianship order from the year Lily left was a legal gap. "You did the work of a guardian," she said. "You were the guardian in every way that mattered. But the law prefers paper." Noah sat with his hands folded the way he does when he is not done thinking. "How long until a hearing?" he asked. "Not long," Amira said. "We will have to move quickly." That night I cried quietly in the bathroom with the shower running so the sound would not travel. When I came out, Noah was at his desk with all 3 monitors lit. Codes on one, files on another. A spreadsheet on the third that looked like a calendar became mathematics. He did not turn around when he said, "It will be okay." How could it be okay? I whispered. He tapped a key. The blue mug sat next to his elbow, a small lighthouse. "Let her talk," he said. "It is easier to measure noise when it is loud." I did not sleep. He did not either. The keyboard kept time with the night. At dawn, I made eggs and toast and placed the plate at his left hand. He ate without looking down, the way you do when you have practiced something until it is part of your muscle memory. When he finished, he washed the blue mug, dried it carefully, and set it back in its place on the counter. "We should go," he said. I picked up my coat and my courage in the same movement. In the car, he looked out the window and counted the slow metronome of red lights while I recited the names of saints I do not believe in but trust anyway. Patience, proof, perseverance. We parked. We walked up the courthouse steps. I felt very old and very new at the same time. The courthouse smelled faintly of floor polish and recycled air. I remember thinking it was the kind of smell that clung to fear. We sat at a narrow table, our lawyer Amira on one side, Noah beside me, and across from us Lily and Mr. Wilder, her polished attorney, his pen lying neatly beside a leather folder that probably cost more than my car. Lily looked exactly as she had 11 years ago and nothing like her at all. Her hair was sleek, her blouse expensive, her expression composed to the point of hollowness. I wanted to shake her and to hug her both at once. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and steel gray hair pulled tight into a bun, called the case. "Miss Hale," she said, glancing at me, "you've served as your grandson's primary caregiver since the age of 6, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And Ms. Ryder," that was Lily's last name now, Ryder asserts that she maintained consistent contact and financial support. "Objection," Amira said calmly. "That statement has yet to be proven." "Noted," said the judge. Then Mr. Wilder stood, all smooth vowels and polished pauses. "Your Honor, my client regrets the misunderstanding between her and her mother. The years apart were difficult, but she remained in touch through letters, transfers, and periodic visits, all documented." He opened his folder and slid the stack of papers forward: financial records, printed emails, custody notes, each bearing tidy seals and signatures that looked authoritative enough to hush a room. The judge examined the top page. "These appear thorough," she said. "They are, Your Honor," Wilder replied, the confidence in his voice practiced. I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. "They're fake," I whispered. Amira's hand covered mine for a moment, a silence steady now. The judge asked Lily to speak. She turned slightly toward the bench, hands folded in front of her. Her voice was soft, precise. "Your Honor, I never meant to abandon my son. I was struggling and my mother agreed to help. I visited regularly when I could, sent money, called often. I only want to be part of his life again and, of course, to help manage his finances responsibly until he turns 18. It's a great deal of money for a teenager to handle." That last sentence landed like a bruise. She paused, carefully adjusting her sleeve. "I just want to make things right." Her voice quavered on right, perfectly rehearsed. I wanted to shout, to tell the judge about every breakfast, every burned cookie, every sleepless night in therapy session. But Amira had warned me, "Don't interrupt. Let the story play itself out." So I bit the inside of my cheek and listened as Lily described an alternate reality: monthly visits that never happened, generous payments that never existed, phone calls that I would have given anything to receive. Noah sat still beside me, not twitching, not tapping, just still. When the judge finally said, "Thank you, Ms. Ryder," I realized I'd been holding my breath for almost 20 minutes. Then it was our turn. Amira rose and began laying out our evidence: therapy notes, school reports, doctor visits, receipts, calendars, everything we'd collected over a decade. "These show Mrs. Hale as the sole caretaker," she said. "There is no indication of any communication, no financial contribution, and no visits from Ms. Ryder for 11 years. The judge skimmed the pages, her eyes kind but cautious. "I see strong evidence of consistent care," she said, "but no legal guardianship papers, and no formal termination of parental rights." That sentence fell between us like a verdict waiting for a signature. "Without legal proof of abandonment," the judge continued, "Ms. Ryder's claim remains valid under family law precedent. Unless there's evidence her documents are forged, her petition for financial guardianship stands." Lily's lawyer smiled, a small victorious twitch. My heart dropped. Amira whispered, "Stay calm. We'll appeal." But I could already feel the ground giving way. All my binders, all my records, they might not be enough. Then the judge looked at Noah. "Young man," she said gently, "you've been very quiet. Is there anything you'd like to say?" Noah stood slowly. "Yes, Your Honor. I have evidence." I turned toward him. "Noah, wait." He reached down for the slim black laptop bag he'd brought and carried it to the witness stand like he'd been rehearsing the movement for years. Amira blinked, startled. "Noah, we haven't." "Let him speak," said the judge. Her tone was curious now, not dismissive. Noah set up his laptop. The courtroom projector blinked awake. "What kind of evidence?" the judge asked. "Digital verification," he said. "I built a system that checks the authenticity of documents." Mr. Wilder's smile faltered. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We haven't reviewed this material." The judge held up a hand. "I'll allow a brief demonstration." Noah nodded, calm as a sunrise. "These are the documents Ms. Ryder submitted 6 weeks ago. They claim to date back over a decade. But each one has a digital fingerprint, a metadata signature that says otherwise. He opened the first file on the projector. A custody agreement with a 2011 date printed on the corner. Then he pulled up the properties panel. Created March 14th of this year, he said. Modified the same day. All of them show the same pattern. He clicked through one after another, highlighting timestamps, edit trails, version histories. Every single file was created within a week of the news story about my software sale. The room went silent except for the faint hum of his computer. Wilder stood. Metadata can be falsified, he said quickly. Any amateur can. Noah interrupted, polite but firm. Not this way. These documents carry embedded signature hashes. When someone changes even one character, the pattern breaks. The breaks are visible here. He zoomed in. Rows of numbers filled the screen, glimmering like a secret language only he could read. See these discrepancies? Each one is a lie pretending to be a date. Even the judge leaned forward. And this system, how do we know it's valid? Noah met her eyes. Because I sold it to Stratton Digital Security last month. They tested it before purchase. It's now used by multiple financial institutions. They verified its accuracy independently. The judge blinked once. Slowly. You're 17? Yes, Your Honor. She looked at Wilder, who now sat perfectly still. Continue, Mr. Hale. Noah opened another folder, his own records. These are my grandmother's calendars, bank statements, phone logs, therapy notes, and grocery receipts from the years Ms. Ryder claimed to visit or send money. Every document has been timestamped and verified for authenticity since I was 9. There are no gaps. If she had called, deposited money, or visited, the records would show it. He clicked again. Phone logs. No incoming calls from Lily's number since December of the year she left. Bank records. No deposits. Calendar entries. Consistent therapy appointments, school meetings, errands but no visits. Photos from holidays, just the two of us. The data unfolded like a map of truth, quiet, meticulous, undeniable. Finally, Noah said, my system doesn't know how to lie. It can only show what actually happened. The judge sat back in her chair, studying the screen. Ms. Ryder, would you like to respond? Lily's voice cracked. The files must have been corrupted. I don't know anything about metadata. Did you create these documents yourself? No, she said quickly, then glanced at Wilder, whose face had drained of color. He helped me organize them. The judge's voice was cold now. Mr. Wilder, did you knowingly submit forged documents to this court? Wilder swallowed. Your Honor, my client provided them. That's not what I asked. The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. When the judge finally spoke, her tone was iron. This court finds that Ms. Ryder's evidence is falsified. Full guardianship is granted to Ms. Marion Hale. Furthermore, this case will be referred for investigation of perjury and fraud. The gavel fell. The sound echoed through the small courtroom like a closing door, and an opening one all at once. I sat there frozen while Noah quietly shut down his laptop, slipped it back into its bag and looked at me. Told you, he whispered. You just had to let her talk. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I did both. When we stepped outside, the sun was sharp and clean on the courthouse steps. I breathed it in as if I'd been underwater for years. Lily avoided my eyes as she walked past with the bailiff escorting her. I watched her go, not with anger, not even pity, but a strange, steady sadness. Somewhere behind us, Noah said softly, it's over. And for the first time in more than a decade, I believed him. 6 months after the hearing, I still sometimes woke at dawn expecting to hear Noah's keyboard whispering through the wall the soft mechanical lullaby that had carried us through fear. Now his apartment was across town, not down the hall. The first few mornings, I made scrambled eggs and toast corner to corner out of habit, then remembered he wasn't at the kitchen table anymore. I started eating standing up, just to remind myself he'd grown into the world. He spent those months untangling legal knots with our lawyer, signing what felt like miles of paperwork that made the court decision permanent. When everything was finally stamped and filed, he said only, that's one system closed, then went quiet as if clearing mental space for something new. The non-compete clause from his sale meant he couldn't work on document verification again for 5 years. That's fine, he told me. I've proved what I needed to. But a week later he started sketching diagrams on napkins. Different kind of software, he explained. One that checks people's work instead of their lies. He called it True North Labs, a company for pattern testing and software assurance. I expected him to hire the usual tech crowd, but he didn't. Instead, he reached out to people like himself. The world keeps overlooking them, he said one evening when I visited. They see too much, feel too much, and everyone calls it wrong. I want them here. His first hire was a man named Daniel Ortiz, one of my former fourth graders. 20 years earlier, the district had tried to label him unfit for mainstream learning. I'd fought the label then. Now he was Noah's quality control lead. When I stepped into their small office, a sunlit floor in a repurposed library, I nearly cried. There were 6 desks, each with noise-canceling headphones and soft lighting. No chatter, no fluorescent buzz, just quiet focus and an atmosphere thick with competence. Daniel looked up, smiled, and said, "Mrs. Hale, remember when you told me precision wasn't defiance?" He gestured toward Noah. "He says the same thing." The blue mug sat on Noah's desk, chipped but clean. He'd brought it with him when he moved out. "I can buy another," I'd said once. "No," he answered. "This one has the right shape for remembering." Lily's name came back into the news briefly. The court sentenced her to 2 years probation and 400 hours of community service at a developmental resource center. The papers called it lenient. I called it merciful. One rainy afternoon, I dropped off donated supplies at that same center. The lobby smelled of crayons and disinfectant, a scent that pulled 1,000 classrooms out of my memory. In one corner, a woman sat on the floor reading picture books to a circle of children, some humming, some rocking gently. It took me a moment to realize it was Lily. Her hair was pulled back, her clothes simple. She didn't see me at first. When she finally looked up, her eyes widened, then softened. We didn't speak. She went back to reading. I watched for a minute, quietly grateful that she had found a place to practice patience she hadn't known how to give before. Some reparations are small and slow. That evening, Noah came by for dinner like he did every Tuesday. He brought his laptop and his appetite. We ate at my kitchen table, my same cracked table that had once been a courtroom of its own, and I poured water into his old blue mug. He told me about his newest project, adaptive testing software that identifies the strengths of neurodiverse students. If a system can adjust to the person instead of the other way around, he said, maybe kids like me won't grow up thinking they're broken. I felt something shift inside me, that same mixture of awe and pride I used to feel watching him line up toy cars by shade. After we ate, I started clearing the plates. Noah stayed at the table, tracing a finger along the mug's chipped rim. Then he said, almost to himself, "I know what you gave up." I turned. "What do you mean?" "Your friends stopped calling. You stopped traveling. You built your world around me." I wiped my hands on a towel, unsure how to answer. "You were never a burden." "I know. But it cost you something anyway." He looked up, meeting my eyes directly, steady and unflinching, as he always was when truth mattered. "You could have sent me away like she did. But you didn't." My throat tightened. I reached across the table, not to touch, he still preferred space, but close enough that he could feel the warmth. "You were worth every single day," I said. He nodded. "I know that now." We sat in quiet, the comfortable kind, the one we had earned over years of sameness and small victories. The heater clicked on, the refrigerator hummed, and for once those sounds didn't startle anyone. When he finally packed his laptop, he rinsed his mug and left it to dry on the rack. "See you next Tuesday," I said. "Tuesday?" he echoed, like a promise. That night, driving home, the streetlights stretched long across the wet pavement, every red and green reflection perfectly ordered. My phone buzzed at a stoplight. A text from Noah. 2 words, "Thank you." I smiled, waiting for the green, knowing that for the first time in a very long time, every pattern in our lives finally made sense.